This is the Marginally Geeky Show, the epically geeky book club.
Greetings and welcome to the Marginally Geeky Show. I'm your host for the evening, Eugene Stevens. Tonight I'm joined by our usual suspects, Chris, Ray, Sean, and Joseph. We have one of our all-time favorite authors on as well. Welcome, everybody, Dennis E. Taylor. Woo!
Everybody.
We are so glad you came back and joined us again. The last time we talked to you was 2019. It was a long time ago.
A lot has happened since 2019.
Yeah.
Absolutely. In fact, I went ahead and just jump right in there. That's not even the first question I had written down, but I thought about it just now. How did COVID change your writing style? Has it done anything to your writing? Has it influenced your writing? Has it changed the way you write? Did it have any effect at all?
You know, there's a joke. I didn't create the joke, but I appreciate it, that programmers didn't realize there was a shutdown for 3 months after COVID started. And it basically that applies to introverts and writers as well. It's just like, oh, I have to stay home. Oh no.
Fair enough.
It's funny you say that because Chris and I just found out that we are introverts and we were looking around and we were feeling very refreshed and we're understanding, like, I don't understand why everybody's all panicky and like why they're freaking out that they can't go out. I love it. It's great.
Yeah, you have to do things that are not team sports. You know, individual activities like mountain biking, snowboarding, walking. Again. Oh no.
Exactly. Oh no. Yeah. I'm gonna jump into the first official question that we had on here. So the last time we talked to you, Heaven's River had not come out yet. You had told us that you were told by Audible, hey, could you combine the next 2 books together? And that's how we got Heaven's River. And so it was kind of, as soon as the book hit, those of us who were reading through it were constantly like, I wonder if we can figure out where the break was originally. And so the first question I have is, was the original break that was supposed to have kind of broke up the 2 books, was that the scene where we find out that Bender is Motorola?
Yeah, and it's more obvious if you're reading the book than it is if you're listening to the audiobook, because in the book it's part 1 and part 2. And right there, when he says Bob Bender,
Yeah.
and that's part 1, and then you go part 2. So yeah, it couldn't be more clear in the printed version.
See, I think everyone here listened to it, and I don't remember if he did say anything. It was probably because we were too stunned to be like, it's Bender. So
Yeah, I remember.
Anyway,
that. So the last time we were talking to you, you mentioned how you kept track of the timeline through an Excel spreadsheet that you had. I'm just curious if you're still doing that, and if you are, how large is that file now? Because it's got to be massive.
No, I gave up on the spreadsheet a while back. I actually wrote a couple of apps of my own to handle all the Bobiverse stuff. It's a lot more efficient than spreadsheets.
Awesome.
You wrote your own apps to keep up with it?
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
I am a computer programmer.
So are these apps available to?
It's like we're having a timeout. Okay, there you go.
I did ask one place, I can't even remember what the website was, if it was possible to upload the source code for things. And they said, well, we're more into utilities than actual applications. Sorry. So I said, I wasn't going to put a lot of effort into it. If I did make it public, I'd have to clean up the UI and stuff too, because I tend to just make it good enough for me to use. Right? It's not pretty, but it gets it done.
That sounds familiar. Like, I have a computer programming background too, and I used to do that a lot in university. And, oh, can I have that? And like, you probably wouldn't be able to use it because like all my shortcuts and stuff like that, like I don't put in the extra stuff.
Yeah, or it's command line interface and,
Yeah.
and the options aren't documented.
Oh, command line interface just totally baffles people today. Like it's
Yeah, I have to type. Where's the mouse?
Yeah, so I guess 2020 happened and everything went to crap. So since then, you know, done cons and stuff. Has COVID changed how you do those things? Have you been to many? Are you increasing it now since the world sort of went back to normal?
Well, the thing is, 2019, I hadn't been an author for very long, so there wasn't anything that could be defined as normal. I was still figuring it all out. The early 2020s, when COVID hit and stuff like that, and of course there were no cons. The one thing I really regret is that the New Zealand Worldcon got canceled because I'd have gone to that. I was really intending to go to that. But anyway, I don't have a pattern yet. And I've been to a couple of cons, but I never really got in the habit in the first place.
Yeah. Well, if you ever come to Fan Expo in Toronto, we'll definitely make the trek down there to get to see it. It's
Or in Denver, for sure.
Denver. That was
Or anywhere in Central Texas. I'll be there.
Pretty sure those are all in the U.S.
Yeah.
They're boycotting that right now. So
Yeah, well, I was going to say the Toronto one looks like a good possibility simply because of that. I did go to a book fest in St. John's, New Brunswick. I was going to say St. John's, but that's wrong. New Brunswick,
Yes.
Fog Fest a couple of years back. That was quite interesting.
Had you been out east before?
Not that far. I've
No.
never been.
My dad's from there. That's why I ask. It's I'd love it out that way. So
So now that you're uploading humans in the Bobiverse, like it's not just Bob, so that's expanding exponentially. Do you have like a guideline on who you're going to make a central character as like an uploaded human? Like, are you just gonna like one and done them, or you have like thought out ahead?
I'm coming to the conclusion as I write more and more books that I'm really a lot more of a pantser than a plotter. When I try to over plan my books, I paint myself into a corner. I get writer's block, and I have to just back right out and start again. So I'm not doing a lot of planning, except in overall terms.
Yeah.
But nothing about individuals. For instance, I'm planning to keep Teresa around. If you've read, before, but in terms of any big picture individuals, no. I use them as I need them, and if they're interesting, I keep them.
Yeah. Having Bridget was like, okay, yep. You could tell right away. I do miss Butterworth, but yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Butterworth, unfortunately, would have really changed the tone of the battle against the others, so he had to go.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it made total sense. And the way you wrote him out, it was really good too. Like it gave the closure and understandable. But still miss him. Granted, I reread the books a couple times a year anyway, so I get them back.
I don't kill off all that many characters, and when I do, people seem to not like it. I get a lot of fist waving.
Well, like it's. I don't want to jump ahead too much, but they're not fully dead. Like they're not dead.
Some of them are, but
take a Red Dwarf reference. It's they're dead, but not dead.
they may not be even as dead as you think they are.
Yeah.
You know?
There's always hope.
Yeah.
Always hope.
Piggybacking off of that, now that you've kind of like worked out the idea of a soul with the cloning and whatnot, would you clone yourself?
I would in any case. If you mean replication, like
Yeah.
Bobiverse style replication, absolutely. I'd prefer to be dead first. Honestly, you know, it is destructive, at least in the early books.
Right.
So yeah, being basically sliced into small pieces to get replicated just doesn't strike me as a fun time.
Yeah. Well, like I said, the last time we had talked to you, it was before Heaven's River came out. And so when we got that kind of revelation from, was it the Skippies that figured that out, that, you know, whenever you move from one place to the other, you know, whoever wakes up first is the original one, and then whoever's wakes up second basically is the copy, is the additional one. We were just wondering if that had changed it, you know, your opinion on that. I think everyone here would still do the same thing. Like we've had multiple conversations about if given the chance to become a replicant, are you jumping ship? And we're all like, absolutely. So.
Yeah. Well, the way I look at it is there's two possibilities. One, you get replicated after death, or the other, you get replicated while you're still alive. And in the later books, that's possible, although barely. But if you're already dead, what have you got to lose?
Yeah.
I mean, even if you're a theist and you assume that you have a soul that goes to heaven or whatever, and the thing that's replicated isn't you, so what?
Yeah.
Again, what have you lost, right?
Yeah.
And if you get replicated while you're still alive, basically you have a new twin brother or sister.
Right. Just a really quick follow-up after that. Would you choose a Manny, and which one?
Oh, I'd choose all kinds of different Mannies. I'd change them like I change my clothes. You know, I love the dragons. You know, and for that matter, the Quinlans. It's two different forms of flying.
Right.
Yeah, I did love the way that you described the Quinlans and how they kind of flew through the rivers and everything. That was yeah.
Yeah, if you've ever watched otters, or for that matter, penguins swimming underwater, it's absolutely far more graceful than what you get on land.
Oh yeah. They just can't dance. So another series that I think two or three of us, I think Joseph maybe even jumped on the ship as well. We started reading his Expeditionary Force, and we got started on Expeditionary Force because Sean there decided, he was like, "Where is this Skippy's reference?" So we want to know how did that happen? How did we get our peanut butter and our chocolate, vice versa?
Well, the Skippy's reference was basically a throwaway line at first. I had started reading X-Force fairly recently before that, and I thought Skippy was great. So I figured, you know what? If Bob is a science fiction nerd, he'd have read X-Force too. So it just seemed like a natural segue, and I just stuck it in. Fun fact, my editor didn't like it. And
Really?
Yeah, he said it's too obscure. Nobody will get it. There's no point in putting it in. And I said, I don't know. I kind of have the same fan base as Ellenson.
Yeah.
You know, there was a fair bit of crossover, as it turned out.
I'm glad you stuck with that one. That was
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, Skippy's another one of our favorite characters. In fact, Sean's got a Skippy shirt. But yeah, once he got started on us and he told us about it, I followed him right along. I've read all the books as well. And then of course we were extremely happy in a couple of the later books that we got some Bobiverse reference, because there's a couple of ships I think named after I can't remember which one of the Bobs it's referenced, but I'm just like, oh, there, that's it. So we just didn't know if there was like planned between y'all, or if you just, if it was just something you kind of threw in there, and
it just kind of worked out. Actually, if you do remember specifically which books have which references, let me know, because I'm still very early in the series.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
Well, you got a ways to go.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think it's book 17 right now or something like that.
Something like that. Yeah.
It's crazy.
Not to give anything away, but yes, there's a point where there's, I think, 3 ships that are introduced. And I want to say that it's Bill and I know, I'm pretty sure Bill's one of them, but the other 2 names, I'm just like, wait, those are Bob's. Like, this is too good. So
yeah. Well, Allenson pumps them out like Perry Roden. It's
yes.
impressive.
He did take a break there for a little while, so it was like, and then it almost seemed like the series was done, and then bam, like book 17 came out. And
Oh, he probably went on vacation.
I hope so. He earned it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so I can't help but notice your background. It's I'm just kind of curious. Your own VR, what would you do? And would it change from the last time we talked? Which I don't know if you remember what that was or not.
It was 2019.
Yeah.
I think VRs would change like Manny's. I know the Bobs in the book like to stick to one VR, but that's more a character device than anything else, just so that the reader has a stable background to deal with. In fact, I have a feeling that for just about anybody, there'd be a favorite VR, but things would change weekly. Yeah,
That's
constant tweaks.
Yeah, I know my fascination about different things would definitely change it all the time. So.
Well, in my case, I don't like to travel, but I like being there.
Yes.
So, if I could set up on a Costa Rican beach or the Champs-Élysées or something like that without having to actually do the airplane thing, that'd be just perfect.
That sounds very familiar.
Thank you.
Yes.
Be invented. I hate fly. I'd rather set myself on fire. I hate it so much. So thank you for that. I'm not the only one.
I know.
But I don't like traveling. I just want to be there. It would be lovely. What are your favorite parts about writing those? Is it VR scenes? Is it little things that you think maybe somebody might get, or characters?
My favorite parts about writing specifically the Bobiverse, or just about writing in general?
Like for me, one of my favorite books is Outland, and so I've listened to it about 3 or 4 times. I love a good natural disaster. That's why I don't like to fly. But yeah, just do you prefer writing the characters first and then filling it all in, or do you get a scene in your head and you're like, I got to write this and then branch out from there?
Well, everything starts with an idea. It's always, there's this is what I want to have happen kind of thing in the broadest terms. And then I sit down, I start writing, and I just see where it goes. More often than not, by the time I'm finished the book, it's nothing like what I had thought I was going to end up with. Except the ending is generally, more or less what I wanted. But how the characters get there is unexpected. Authors quite often talk about how their characters take over, about how they're just taking dictation and the characters are doing what they want. But what's really happening is the writer is thinking rationally, logically, sometimes emotionally about what a person would do in that circumstance. And if you write them faithfully, they're believable and they do reasonable things, or sometimes they do unreasonable things because they're an unreasonable person. But idiot scripts happen when, whoa, what just changed there?
Oh, sorry. I was just putting up one of your books as reference. Sorry, I didn't mean to start again.
No. Idiot scripts happen when writers don't stick to what's logical, when they make the character do something that doesn't make sense just to plot point, and those are usually pretty detectable.
John, you want to?
Where were we?
Skipping around. Sorry.
Professional, I swear.
Yeah, really. Homer. So you decided to use Homer to explain some of the Bob divergence, which that was brilliant to me. It hurt a lot.
It was a gut punch.
Holy crap. How'd that idea come about, and how was it difficult to write something like that? Because Homer really was a beloved character. But how'd that whole thing come about?
Well, I had to come up with there it happens again.
Eugene just keeps screwing around with stuff.
Trying
Just can't leave anything alone.
I want people to look at it and be like, "This is the book," and he's talking about the book. I'm trying to help out.
Yeah, it's ruined.
Starfleet needed an explanation.
Yeah.
And the explanation that I initially had for Starfleet when I was writing Heaven's River didn't hold up to what Starfleet ended up doing by the end of the book. So I had to come up with something new. Somebody actually suggested that Starfleet was the descendants of Homer. And that sounded like a nice twist, but I wanted to twist it just a little bit more. So, I took one step over and made them the descendants of Charles, and because of Homer.
Yeah.
Kind of. It also had to be fairly bizarre in order to produce a group of Bobs that were just that wacko.
Yeah, honestly, I think most of us re-listened to that section a few times during the initial read just to fully understand what was going on. I know I 3 or 4 times, and it got worse every time I listened to it. I'm like, oh, I'm understanding more. Holy crap. But no, it was good.
My heart was breaking as I was listening to it. And I'm like, oh, is this thing, like, is this really what I think it is? And like Sean, I'm listening to it over and again, and it hurt, but it was in a good way of like understanding where they came from.
I think I came busting through, and I'm like, "Are you kidding?" I think that was my reaction.
I think it was. I had to say, keep going.
Yeah.
It works out. It's okay.
Yeah.
So, given that we're talking about tough topics now, which of the books so far do you feel like was the hardest to write?
And that's all the books.
Yeah.
Everything.
Yeah.
Book 5 was the hardest to write because I got writer's block right in the middle of it.
Really?
Yeah, and I had to have a conversation with my agent and my editor to refocus me. And the result of that was the whole Icarus and Daedalus side plot, which grew out of a minor 2-chapter kind of thing into a major part of the book.
Wow. Oh. Yeah, because I think Sean said that was one of his favorite parts of the book was...
That, to me, was... Yeah, I loved Daedalus and Icarus. That whole story, I could just... So many possibilities were coming off of that one. So...
Well, that was me getting back to basics in terms of the Bobiverse, the exploration thing. And
it really felt that way. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what broke the writer's block, really. It was
That's
just the old, woohoo, we're going exploring.
So did you intend for them to find, I guess, the Galaxy Killer, or was that just a happy circumstance of what you were going through?
Well, once they found the wormhole network, it was inevitable that they were going to find the makers of the wormhole network. Mm-hmm. And then you have to go into the whole explanation of why we haven't seen them before. And the best explanation is that they're not around anymore. And then you have to ask, well, why aren't they around anymore? Well, something has to have happened. And I had a couple of possibilities, and I ended up with something approaching from the zone of avoidance and threatening the galaxy.
No.
When we did our initial review of Not Till We Are Lost, that's what was Sean's comment was. He was like, I'm so glad it's not like, unfortunately, what Star Wars has done, where it's the same bad, it's a bigger bad this time, and we're like, what's going to happen? Are we going to find the others plus or whatever it might be? And this is so much better of a problem for them to have to deal with. I think everyone was like, oh, this is interesting. I can't wait to see how we're going to get out of it this time, or how we're going to deal with it this time. So
yeah, well, of course it is one of those slow problems. Mm-hmm. So it's not like there's a time crunch. This is like Deadpool on the Zamboni slowly running the dial. I'm going to kill you eventually.
Eventually, yes. I wanted to ask. So AI played a big part in Not Till We Are Lost. I wanted to know what are your feelings on AI in its uses now? Last week or a couple weeks ago on one of our other shows, we had my sister-in-law on. She's a self-published writer, and we just kind of asked some of her thoughts, whatever, because I have friends in lots of different areas. I have friends that are writers. I have friends that make indie movies, that do graphic art or music or whatever. And a lot of people have a lot of different opinions. Either it's a great tool I can use, or this is the worst thing ever.
Well, it's both. I mean, it is a great tool. There's no question about that. If you have no artistic talent whatsoever, like I do, and you want to design a quick picture, and you just give Chat GPT some instructions, it will come up with something horribly gross. But it's good for it's good for just screwing around and trying ideas. Mm-hmm. But I don't think it's anywhere near prime time ready in terms of being able to produce finished product. Having said that, a lot of people are going to use it anyway, mm-hmm. and that puts people out of work, and that's not a good thing. The most common meme as far as AI, as far as the subject of AI is concerned, is that it's a way for, and I'm probably going to get this quote wrong, but it's a way for billionaires to access the talent of creators without having to pay the creators. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, that is to a very large extent true. It's you might think of it as the difference between a custom-made suit and something off the rack. The suit off the rack is perfectly adequate, but if you want to look good, you got to get something custom-made. Mm-hmm. And let me be clear on this: AI is nowhere near ready to completely replace creators. What it produces is not as good, not as original. It's completely derivative. I think probably my industry is more immune than some. Mm-hmm. I don't think you're going to get AIs writing original stories anytime soon. Not the stories that can't be recognized as AI anyway. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Sure. Can I just go off on a slight tangent on that?
Go, run.
I'm a moderator on a forum, a snowboarding forum, mm-hmm. and what we're getting is an influx of AI posters attempting to get their forum posts in so that then they can post spam crap. And most of the time I can glance at the post and say, oh, that's an AI. and I'm very rarely wrong.
Mhm.
They just do not feel like human beings yet.
Right.
It's an uncanny valley thing, verbally as well as visually.
Yeah, I can't imagine. I mean, I've heard people post ideas that, what if we have it so you could like train it on all the Bobiverse books, and then you could tell it, write me a story set in the Bobiverse. And I'm like, that even doesn't even remotely sound interesting to me. Like, I don't want that. Like that. And like you said, number one, it is as hard as it would try, it would be a poor imitation regardless. But yeah, it's the thing I keep hearing and saying that I completely agree with is, can we stop doing the creative stuff that we want to do? Can we leave that alone and get them to start like making the robot vacuum smarter so that it picks up everything it's supposed to pick up?
I want it to do my dishes so I can write, not write so I can do my dishes.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's funny. Like, I've used AI for some of my drawings or art as concepts, and then I would take that concept in order to get it through. But I think it's a tool, kind of liken it to your AMIs that you've written in the Bobiverse books, where it's smart enough to do what you need it to do, but it's not smart enough to overcome any major problems. So
yeah. They follow scripts. And my robot vacuum, by the way, gets stuck under the same cabinet every time, and it is not learned. So let's have some AI on the robot vacuum.
Yeah.
Just give it more time, just like Guppy.
yeah.
I'm curious to see how Guppy goes.
Oh, I love Guppy. I just wanted to go back to your writer's block for a little bit, because it kind of reminded me of our first interview with you when you talked about the butterfly effects that have that you've noticed and kind of happened to change in the way that you even started writing. So I was wondering, other than the writer's block, has there been any new butterfly effects that you've kind of noticed in the last 5 years?
Not.
That's our dog. I am sorry. My
That's okay. We have one that sounds very similar, actually. Not particularly. I think that the move to writing was probably the biggest single event in my life, except my marriage, which
We're all married guys here. We understand.
You have to say that.
She's right here.
If you need help.
No, but seriously, I mean, in terms of a change to our lifestyle, the writing change pretty much swamps anything else. But once you're there, it's it's small changes.
Yeah.
Right now, the biggest changes that are happening are political, and I'd just as soon not get into that.
Yeah, we're with you.
Yeah. Might make it easier to go see like New Zealand and stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the fact that you can't, the States isn't a viable option anymore means, well, okay, now there's there's Ireland and there's Toronto and there's New Zealand and all these other places that maybe we wouldn't have considered otherwise.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Not that I wouldn't have considered New Zealand. That just ever since Lord of the Rings, that place just looks like somewhere you have to visit.
My in-laws went there on a trip to, like, they went to Australia and they stopped in New Zealand and they took a whole bunch of pictures for me. I'm like, oh, I gotta go.
It's on the to-do list.
Yeah.
They have to ship me up with Ativan to get me on the plane. Like,
Hell yeah.
17-hour flight. No.
I'll make knock.
He'll shoot me after the
Well, I'm not so sure about Australia.
There's too many deadly things there.
I was going to say, everything there's trying to kill you.
Yeah, pretty much.
Everything is trying to kill you or eat you or kill you and eat you or something without killing you. No.
Yeah, they said they had a good time, but No, thanks.
Right, so that's a good time.
Yeah.
Speaking of a good time, what for you? I know you have you've got lots of lots of different stories going out there. Which for you is the most enjoyable so far to write? Is it the Bobiverse because of how many books? Is it Outland because it's just starting? Is it the one-offs? Which are more fun for you?
The one-offs are more fun because I don't have to worry about the overarching plot of the thing. I can just write it, and when it's done, it's done. Except that I have a tendency to write books that make for sequels.
Singularity Trap. I'm still waiting.
Yeah. Roadkill is just demanding a sequel, and I actually have some thoughts in mind. So, that one's probably coming. And I still have to write the third Outland.
Yes, we're all excited about that. Yeah.
Outland. Oh, yeah. I'm with Chris. A good disaster.
Oh, I love it.
I will say after I read Roadkill, sorry, Sean, after I read Roadkill, I think my comment was I could go either way. If we get sequels, I'm down for it, but it felt like it kind of wrapped up okay. But like I said, if I'm totally down for another one if we get it. So of course, at this point, whatever you put out, we're just gonna eat it with a spoon. I'll be honest with you. So
funny thing about Roadkill, in the first version of it, the kids and Sheldon actually get revealed to the public as part of the climactic scenes and stuff like that. And the final scene in the final chapter is Sheldon landing in front of the UN building and the kids coming out in their new black Operation uniforms and meeting with the public and stuff. And my editor said, no. No. Thorough rewrite.
So, Dennis, I know you've done a lot of interviews and because I've watched a lot of them and all that. Is there a question that you haven't been asked about your books or your writing style or anything like that that you're surprised hasn't been asked yet? Like it could be something really basic or something like that, or an inside joke that no one's figured out yet, that kind of thing.
Well, there is an inside joke that no one's figured out yet. But in general terms, no. I think I've been asked just about everything under the sun.
Yeah, I kind of thought that, but this inside joke that no one's figured out. Oh, you're not gonna give us a hint?
Oh no, I'll tell you because
okay.
Nobody picked up on it. The name that Bob picks when he's in Heaven's River, Enoki fungi.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Enoki is a type of fungus.
Okay.
Fungi. Oh, come on, Eugene.
Sorry, I'm tired. It took me a second.
And I just happened to be on the web at the wrong time. And that'll work.
That's awesome.
Like Bob, I'm not very mature.
See, now that you've asked that question, Sean, part of me just wants to X out the rest of the questions that we have and just ask Dennis, what questions have you what are the things what do you want to talk about? Like if you don't even talk about books, we'll just talk about whatever, because I'm sure you probably get asked the same things over and over again. And I feel bad when people get asked well, how did you come up with the idea for the book and that type of stuff. So we're trying not to tread over the same stuff over and over again. But if we do, let us know.
Oh, that's Minerva.
Yeah,
she's photobombing us.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. She does almost every show.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Well, I do have a Canadian question for you then, if that's
okay.
I'm really curious what your favorite Canadian treat is.
Treat?
Treats.
Nanaimo bars.
Yeah.
Which one?
Nanaimo bars.
Oh,
There is
down.
I was gonna say y'all haven't sent that one down to me yet.
There is nothing like Nanaimo bars.
Ah. Now I'm hungry.
No, you try to explain what a Nanaimo bar is, and it just sounds like a sugar coma, but it's so worth it. It's so good.
Speaking as a diabetic, it is a sugar coma.
But
It's
what
worth it though.
Oh, yeah.
So the question I had lined up for you, we kind of already addressed it when we were talking about the AI space. So I am going to throw my question out and ask another question here. Have you ever been approached? Would you do it if someone were to write like a sci-fi video game, and they approach you to do the world building for that? Would you be interested in something like that?
I actually have been approached on 2 separate occasions for that type of thing. On one of them, the company wanted me. I don't know if they wanted me to take stock or if they just wanted me to use it as exposure, but let's just say that it wasn't going to be worth my time financially.
Mm-hmm.
And on the other one, it kind of petered out.
Mm.
And in retrospect, I'm glad that both of them went nowhere, because I don't think that's my wheelhouse.
Mm-hmm.
I could probably do it, but I don't think I'd enjoy it.
For the record, if there was a resource building game built in the Bobiverse, I would be all over that.
Oh yeah,
You know?
yeah.
Yeah,
I think that I would be happy to assign the intellectual property rights to a video game, like let them use it, the Bobiverse and stuff like that. But other than on a consulting basis, I don't think I'd be too involved.
Maybe Helldivers could cross over into.
that's the one you picked, not something that's like resource management. Like that would be the perfect thing. Like, I need more printers.
It would be the VR version, like it's the guys having fun. It's the
Oh, fair enough. Okay. I did want to ask. So going back to Outland and Earthside, what all research did you have to do for I don't know, preparing ideas and stuff? So one of the first things that ever popped in my head about those book series is, what is the minimum population you have to be able to sustain a genetic, a gene pool that humans could feasibly go on? Was that the type of stuff you had to research, or was there anything else in particular you're just like, man, I gotta figure this out if I'm going to put this in here?
Yeah, the gene pool thing is a little bit more of a long-term problem. What isn't obvious in the Outland series is that the whole thing, 2 books, takes place between about June and October of the same year.
Mm-hmm.
So, they're nowhere near that point yet. In fact, the first child hasn't been born in Outland yet.
Right.
Although several people have gotten pregnant, apparently.
Yeah.
Yeah. The Outland series is a very short timeline, so they're never going to get to the point of worrying about that. But in terms of things that I had to research and so forth, there's books about rebuilding civilization and 437 mechanical movements and life without people or life without humans. I can never get it straight which of the titles is correct, but it's mostly about thinking in what would an engineer do in those circumstances, right? The people who build things, Howard Walloway. What would they kludge together?
Yeah, because one of the things I know that one of the running jokes in that, I guess a running joke in that book series is, what's important? Well, everything's important. And I'm just like, hey, maybe I'll need to go find a library. So, because I'm sure, if you don't have a blacksmith or someone who knows blacksmithing, that's a skill that doesn't need to disappear. And those are the things that keep running in my head. Like I said, I love all the books anyway, but every time I read them, those are the things that pop in my head. I'm just like, what about the population? What about trying to collect as many books as possible?
Yeah.
So.
The problem with collecting as many books as possible is that in the short term, at least, they're probably safer in the library than they would be over in Outland, where they don't have much in the way of controlled environments yet.
That's true.
But by next year, hopefully, they will be. They're building the longhouses now for the winter, and Bill will keep working on it.
Poor Bill. I did a joke with the guys at one point that eventually they would get to a frozen earth and there would just be a Bob standing there waiting for them to say, "Hey, what's going on?" So speaking of, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say that a lot of fans have suggested an Outland Bobiverse crossover, but the timelines are too dissimilar.
Yeah.
So speaking of Quantum Earth, and especially since you've written your own app for Bobiverse, do you have an app for Quantum Earth, or are you to keep it all straight, or is that still in the Excel spreadsheet file?
Quantum Earths didn't really require anything more than notes. Again, because of the short timeline and the limited area, in which it's happening. The worst thing I've had to do was try to coordinate, different timelines, like when the army heads off to a different city and stuff like that. I got to make sure that the dates match up.
Yeah.
But that's kludgy stuff.
Yeah.
There's no time dilation involved either, so that's
Not yet.
So we were, as Eugene had mentioned, we had interviewed his sister-in-law a couple weeks ago, and she had mentioned that authors and readers sort of have separate spaces on the internet that are just for them. And Goodreads is one of those things that is just for readers. Do you try to stay out of reader spaces? Is it even a thing for science fiction in general, or?
I mostly stay away from the spaces. Partly so that I don't get my feelings hurt. Partly so that I don't run into concept ownership issues. One of the things that happened very early on in the Facebook group Fans of the Bobiverse was I said that if I wasn't going to be showing up, because if they started talking about things that end up in my books, there'd be this issue of, well, where did he get the idea from, and who owns it, and I get sued for, copyright infringement and crap like that. So they made a rule in Fans of the Bobiverse that anything you post in there is public domain.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
You lose ownership of it immediately. You can't sue anybody. Tough luck, buddy.
Mm-hmm.
And that's great. And because of that, I do tend to go into Fans of the Bobiverse sometimes, although my wife does a lot more often than me.
Yeah. She's awesome.
Goodreads, I basically stay out of entirely because it is very much a reader-focused site.
Okay.
I think what did she call it? The bad place. My sister-in-law referred to it as the bad place. So.
Yeah.
That's where your feelings hurt. Like, either you love Dennis E. Taylor's writing or you're wrong. Like, don't get too bad about it. It's simple as that. It's like bacon. Either you love bacon or you're wrong.
Or you're wrong. That's very true, Sean.
Either you love bacon or you are an imaginary character.
Well, yeah.
Unless you're a vegan. And we make it for vegans.
Oh, no, let's not get started on them.
Or you're allergic to it. I mean, you really can't eat it.
Can you be allergic to bacon?
Yeah.
Pork and red meat.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Bacon's not that good. Sorry, Ray.
We've been joking the whole time, Ray. It's all a con.
Yeah, it's not that Good.
I
Sorry.
smell it. I know what it tastes like.
Now this is one of those throwaway questions that we've already kind of discussed, that you've been asked everything under the sun. But the idea for Roadkill, where did that come along? I can't remember. Let's see. Roadkill was one of the 2022. So you've been writing Bobiverse and all that for quite some time. Was this just kind of a refresh, something different kind of thing?
Well, ever since I've written, I wrote the first 3 Bobiverse books, one after the other, and in fact they were written continuously, and then just released on a fairly short time frame. But once I got those 3 out, I decided that I was going to alternate a Bobiverse book with a non-Bobiverse book every time.
Yeah.
And I think Singularity Trap was the first thing I released after the 3 Bobiverse books. Then I did Heaven's River. Then I did Roadkill. Then I did Not Till We Are Lost. And Outland. The Outland books don't really fit in there because they're a different series and complicated. Because I wrote Outland before I wrote We Are Legion, and then
that was self-published.
Yeah.
And then you redid it afterwards. No,
But generally speaking, and the next book that's coming out is called Flybot, and it's a non-Bobiverse book, obviously.
Yeah,
and
that actually was my next question. What can you tell us about Flybot?
So that's an AI-related book and a little bit more of a mystery.
Okay.
Although it's science fiction because that's what I write.
Mm-hmm.
But don't ever change that either. That's even just kind of getting back to the alternating, because you've done a couple short stories too. Do you plan on doing any more of those? Like feedback, man, I had to almost draw out a map on that one, but I really enjoyed it. But or what was the
Change of Plans was the other one.
A Change of Plans, that was it. Do you enjoy doing those short stories? And
I think I would enjoy doing short stories, actually. Now, both of those stories were written for specific things. In the case of A Change of Plans, somebody approached me to write a story in an ongoing series, and I gave it a try. But it was interesting, but I don't think I would have kept up with the series. Feedback was written because Audible was looking for Audible originals that they'd pay a flat fee for, and then they could just give away free to new clients and stuff like that. And I just wrote it and sent it off to Steve, and he liked it and he took it, and that was that. Perfect. In terms of writing more short stories, I have literally hundreds of ideas, and most of them wouldn't expand into novels.
Okay.
But they make great short stories. So I certainly could write a book of short stories. I guess the problem is, from a practical point of view, where's my time best spent?
Yeah.
Okay, so here's a question. I can't remember. I don't think it was on our sheet here, but someone had brought up, I want to say it was Ray, had brought up the idea that, and so going back to what you're saying about, ownership and everything else, I'm saying right here, I'm going to throw this out there. We don't claim ownership of this. This is totally out in the ether, whatever. Would you ever consider doing a book of short stories in the Bobiverse?
Oh, absolutely. It's definitely what's going to happen with the Bobiverse is I have a series arc that I'm following, and it's probably either 2 or 3 more books, and then the series as such is done. But it's only done as a continuous timeline. The thing that I've been very careful about with the Bobiverse is making sure that it's a continuous history. There's dates on every chapter. The dates follow in sequence. You know, when the final chapter on the final book is written, it's going to have a date on it, and it's going to be part of the history of the Bobiverse. But once that's done, there's no reason I can't write Tales from the Bobiverse. Or some
We literally have that written down as
Yes,
a suggestion
it's
for a
literally
title.
because we've fallen in love with so many of the different Bobs. Like I know Chris loves the stories about
Bridget and Howard.
Bridget and Howard. Sean's a big fan of Day and Ick. I love seeing Bill play and try to figure out new stuff, and you know, everyone else I'm sure would agree. Would love to just have these little even if they're just throwaway stories, even if they don't really come to anything. It's fun to visit with these characters we've fallen in love with.
Yeah.
So
yeah, but there will be short stories and there will be novels in the Bob.
Okay, cool.
Well, no reason not to. You know, it's an open-ended universe.
That's cool.
cool. That makes me feel good.
Now, just a follow up to that, because yeah, like this was one of the questions because Bobiverse is expanding exponentially. At that point, after you've done the series and you're doing more expansions and all that, would you think about allowing more authors to write in that universe?
I'm not adverse to the idea. I know the kind of things you're talking about, and yeah, I don't see a problem. It's you know, it expands things.
Yeah, like it's the same. It's like Forgotten Realms and Dragonlance. Like you get to a certain point, a critical mass, and then okay, well, let's see what other people can write. Not that I'm suggesting any that soon, because I want that full series. I want you to be tired of it first. Well, good to know.
Yep.
It's something else on my bucket list now.
I know, right? You're gonna take a stab at a Bob short story there, Sean?
I got 1,000 ideas too, and I really I need a change.
Well, we don't want to completely monopolize your evening, but does anyone have any other questions they wanted to throw out there real quick?
I had one quick one. When you're writing stuff outside of the Bobiverse or planning within the Bobiverse, and let's say you're working on Outland or Outland, and you have an idea for something, do you ever stop and say like, is this better here, or should I plop this in the Bobiverse, or should it go to something else, or like does that ever happen?
Oh yeah. Little dialogue points, in jokes, scientific things, plot items. Sure. Yeah, I have to decide. Is that better in a different book? I can see it conceivably turning into a book. Some item that comes up while I'm writing.
Nice.
Only and I know you're under an NDA, and I know that you're under anything, so totally understand. Is there anything that you can share about any upcoming stuff, whether it's Bobiverse or other fun stuff that you might be working on?
Nothing earth-shattering. Or let's just say that the stuff that is reasonably earth-shattering, I'm under NDA for, so there'll be none of that. But I'm mostly just writing. Book 6 right now. Right. I've also gotten about 3/4 of the way through a non-Bobiverse book called The 10,000 Worlds, but I reached a sort of a writer's block point on that, so I switched. Sometimes that helps.
I'm sure it's good to have multiple projects that you can do that on instead of having to just like I've got to hammer through this. So
yeah,
I've never been much of a writer, so I get blocked on other projects, and it is nice to be able to switch gears and be like, okay, now I'm going to work on this other thing. So.
Yeah, and in one of those rare cases of absolute coincidental synergy, Isaac Arthur put out a video a week ago, maybe, titled something like "Worlds Around Black Holes,"
Mm-hmm.
and that's what the 10,000 Worlds is based on. And I'm like, ah. So when that comes out, Isaac's going to be, no, dude, I did not copy it from.
Fair enough.
We have proof.
Yeah, this video will come out on Monday, so if nothing else, you can always reference this show. So, video proof of it, man. So, well, I guess we'll go ahead and wrap up our main conversation then. Do you want to? Do you need to head out? Do you have a hard out, or do you want to hang around for a few more minutes?
I'm open. I don't.
Okay, cool.
I don't schedule things really tightly generally because I don't like having to run from one meeting to the next or something like that.
Good on you. Adam Savage talked about, he finally had something explained to him how a manager's brain and a creative's brain are different. And as soon as I heard it, it totally makes sense. Managers want to have, like, they can have things chopped up, but a lot of creative people, I'm putting myself in there as well. The idea of having something like at like a 10 o'clock meeting just destroys my entire morning, because it's like, between breakfast and lunch is work time to work on creative stuff. And then maybe the afternoon, and then there's a break for dinner, and then, and having things like that breaking up. So I totally get that. In fact, I even thought about that when you said it was going to be about 5:30 your time. I was like, oh, I hope we're not ruining some writing time or something by doing the show at this time.
Or at least not keeping you from the enamel bars.
Yeah.
And I'm over. See,
Well,
now I can go over to IGA and buy a flat of them.
Yep.
You know what?
About this big,
Yep.
Kind of surprised they haven't shown up in one of the books then, because I mean, you kept referencing vinegarized fries. That has shown up. That showed up in Bobiverse. That showed up in Outworld. I think it also showed up in Roadkill, but I'd have to go back and double check that. So
I think Roadkill was pizza.
Okay.
Yeah.
Pizza Hut.
Okay. I'll have to go back and double check that one. So
You should throw in a fluffer nutter. Just, just, tit for tat. Yeah.
Well, the next segment we usually do is other things that we've been reading. Would anyone like to go first?
I'll go.
Yeah.
since
All right,
I-
Chris. What else have you been reading?
So I think I'm halfway through The Bedlam Bride.
Okay.
I think I'm trying to catch up. It's difficult. This one's long.
It is.
And I just got, no, I can't say, but I do have thoughts about a certain part. And then now I'm also reading, Ray picked me up a book the other day when he was out, and it's called The Magicians, and it's by Lev Grossman, I think, and it's the first of a trilogy, and it takes place at a magical school. So I'm about halfway through that. It's very fast paced. I kind of wish it would slow down a little bit, because he's already, the main character Quentin is already in his 5th and final year, and I'm only halfway through the first book, and it's just like, oh, would have liked to extended that out a little bit. But other than that, it's very interesting, his take on the magical school. And then for the book club that I'm with, the other one, we're reading The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. And I read that 3 years ago.
Mhm.
So I have to refresh it. I remember liking it fine. It was okay. It wasn't earth shattering, like some people were saying, but it was very interesting idea of how somebody who's effectively immortal, but every person they meet, the moment they turn away, they forget her. So how does she live her life as this immortal with everybody constantly forgetting her, until one day she meets somebody who doesn't? So like, oh, it's like, now I gotta read it.
Sounds like a Doctor Who episode.
Yeah, a little bit.
There was a similar character in The Spaceship Next Door, actually.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's, yeah. That's what I was thinking of.
I'll go ahead and jump in just because you mentioned the book is running kind of fast. I finished my second run through of This Inevitable Ruin. I had to listen to this book at 1.7 speed because there is so much going on in this book, and there are points where the reader is I mean, he's reading as it's written, but it is just rapid fire information. So buckle up, Chris, when you get to that one. By the way, Dennis, the book series we're referring to, our buddy Joseph there got us started on Dungeon Crawler Carl, and we have ripped through these books extremely fast. The newest one just came out, and I think it's our next book that we're reading for next month. So
that's in my TBR pile.
So good.
They're out there. The stories are out there, but they're a lot of fun. So
yeah.
If you get a chance for audio, like as an Audible listen as well, Jeff Hayes does an amazing job.
Mm-hmm. He does
as narrating it. So.
Yeah, he's a very good narrator.
Library.
The other things I managed to get read since last time we convened, I also did Threads of Fate. It's book 5 in the Ascend Online series. That's that one I was telling you about, Joseph, that I think you're going to get started on. Also really enjoying that series. There was a big break between, I think, books 4 and 5, and I was kind of worried maybe the author wasn't writing anymore, but he's apparently done several other things, and maybe he had to take a break and get back to it. But I'm very glad he's gotten back to it. And then the last thing, I was wanting to try to start something today, and I did what is it called? All Systems Red, which is the first book in the Murderbot Diaries by Martha Wells. I've heard really good things about it. Apparently, they're making a TV series or something out of it. Yeah. My only hesitation is, and actually, this could be another question I need to ask you, Dennis. My only hesitation to doing it was only 3 hours. So, I mean, I ripped through it really quickly.
They're novellas. They're not full novels.
Yeah, and see, that's where I don't have a problem with that, except that, it's hard to take my Audible credit that is, I think $13-14 and go, do I apply this to a 3-hour read, or do I apply this to, say, something Stephen King's done that's 30 hours? It's sometimes hard to do that math in my head. I also listen to everything at double speed, so it also it's like, wow, this is gonna this is almost my drive home. Like I can get through it. So I hesitate on some of those things like that, and I don't want to be that way because I know I love novellas. I love short stories too. I love collections of short stories. But so as a writer, does hearing that make you cringe a little bit? That people are like, oh, well, it's not long enough, or it should be longer.
I get complaints about the Bobiverse books not being long enough.
Really?
Yeah, but they're being compared to books that are like 17 hours long. The Bobiverse books are 80,000 words and up, usually between 80 and 100,000 words, which is a standard novel size back when novels were printed.
Yes.
And in fact, some of the older novels back from the 50s and 60s and stuff like that, they were down in the 50 to 70,000 word range. It is what it is. Okay. Now, having said that, I tend to take advantage of Audible's daily deals. And they're 2-for-1 sales and stuff like that. If they come up with one of those, and it's something like, let's just use All Systems Red as an example. If you're not willing to use a full credit on it, then if it comes up on a daily deal for $3,
yeah, exactly. That's a good point.
Yeah,
that's fair.
And not to rope around, I've already done this. I'm going to do it again. I just thought about this question, but I never even thought about that. Like, television shows have to stick to a certain time period, and that's why a lot of people don't like the news anymore, because it has to fit within a certain thing. Whereas a podcast or a YouTube show can be as short as long as you want it. Are you finding that the same way with writing now, that it's since I know a lot of people still read, printed books, but since a lot of stuff is done through Audible or like say a Kindle or something, is there still that pressure to hit certain levels? Like it needs to be between this and this length, or is it whatever it needs to be?
I think it's minimum length.
Okay.
Oh,
Nobody's going to complain if it's 12 hours instead of 10, but people will complain if it's 6 hours instead of 8. There's an expectation of a minimum story length, I think, and Heaven's River was almost two book length. I think it was 14 hours. I can't remember, but it was certainly significantly longer than most of my other books. Not one single complaint. Nothing.
Nice.
So I think that I set myself a soft goal of a minimum of 80,000 words, and I won't pad the book to make that happen. But if I'm not at 80, I feel like I've skimped on some of the action, and I have to go back and look and see if I've rushed, because I do tend to rush through scenes sometimes.
Okay. Well, since you have the mic, have you been reading it? Oh, I'm sorry. We were going to say,
No, I was going to say just on the length of things. The very first book I listened to on Audible was The Silmarillion, so nothing is long.
Boy,
I know, right?
Ouch.
That's what
Yeah, you set yourself up on that one, man. Like
everything after that is just like, 25 hours? No big deal at all.
I keep thinking to make Battlefield Earth one of my picks because it's about 55 hours.
Oh,
yeesh.
And I've done that multiple times. I like Battlefield Earth, not the movie, but the book was really good. So, but that 55 hour mark for you guys, I was like, I'm not going to do it.
Yeah, please. I mean, granted, I've done The Stand, and The Stand's up there as well, but yeah.
I did A Wise Man's Fear by Patrick Rothfuss, and that was 42 hours. That's like
The only time it ever comes up is when you guys pick a really crappy book, Ray.
We're going to drag Dennis into our in conversations. Speaking of which, so Dennis, what else have you been reading?
A lot of what I read or listen to these days is nonfiction. I've always had a strong nonfiction side to me, like scientific magazines and stuff like that. So it's not unusual. But I'm more looking for ideas now.
Okay.
So I will pick certain subjects and I'll listen to them. And not only is it educational, but there's always the chance that somewhere in there's a nugget that says, oh, you can make a book out of that.
Nice. Nice.
Because the best kind of, I guess let's use the very wide term fantasy, but the best kind of fantasy novels are the ones where they're based on a nugget of truth, of fact. And it's just like, well, maybe that could happen.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Ray, what else you been reading?
So, Sean,
he's fine. He's trying to steal
I am listening to everything before I even recommend it now. I did listen to Inevitable Ruin by Matt Dinneman. Got finished that one. Rocket ride the entire time. Yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I just checked my library just to refresh my memory, because sometimes I go blank at the wrong time. There's a series I just finished by Sean Finian. It's the Stardock trilogy, I think is what it's called, and it's a really good series in my opinion. It's serial problem solving in the the same vein as The Martian and the Bobiverse and Outland for that matter. And I just burned through it.
Okay.
That's
That's fun.
just got added.
Yeah, just made the list.
Yeah, you had the pedigree you just wrote out there is exactly what we're looking for.
Yeah.
So
All right, that's on the list. So after listening to The Inevitable Ruin, I'm looking, or I've started. It's called The Night Raven by Sarah Painter, and it's kind of a private eye in a magical world who has no powers herself, and so it's kind of an interesting take on that. So I'll let you know, and I won't recommend it until I've read it, and we'll go from there.
The face Sean made immediately.
It's private eye stuff, so it's mystery.
It might be okay. I'll read the whole thing first this time.
I am.
I will say I'm very impressed by mystery and private eye and police procedurals that are in fantasy or science fiction worlds and that are done well, because it requires extra effort to not just explain everything away with a new technology whenever you need it. It still has to be suspenseful and believable and stuff like that, while still having that fantastical element to it. And that's a hard line to adhere to.
Oh yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah,
and we love your reference in the Bobiverse of well, most books just kind of hand wave and explain it away or whatever, and then accuse each other of doing the same things. But Sean, what else are you reading?
So yeah, like everyone else, well, almost everyone else, I finished book 7 of the Inevitable Ruin, which was great. I'm glad I didn't have to wait too long for that one, because I had just finished book 6. I did listen to the Murderbot mystery, that the first one, All Systems Red,
mm-hmm.
and I did enjoy it. Like I think it would be a good TV series.
I could see how it could be.
Yeah. Yeah, and I ran into that same problem too, like being a novella. How much do I want to invest? But I do look for. Oh, yep. I think I got that one for like $3 or something like that. I keep
it's a free one right now. That's why I downloaded it, because it literally the first one's free, and I'm like, oh, good. So if I enjoy it, I get to go buy the other ones. You got me again.
The first one's always free.
That's right. The first one's always free. Yeah.
Currently, I'm listening to Utopia by Lincoln Child. Every now and then, I do like getting into Lincoln Child books. I'm about halfway through it. It takes place at a futuristic theme park. It's got AI in it, terrorist group. I'm really enjoying it. And I think I'm reading Go West, Young Man, just at work, and it's my first time really trying to get into westerns.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I've always kind of like, I really want to try the western genre, and I don't know if all westerns are like this one, or is it just this writing style, but I almost have to drop my IQ about 50 points to understand the language. Like, the descriptions and all that are great, but as soon as a character talks, I don't know, 1800s, just, it's hard. And I've read like all the Little House on the Prairie novels growing up and stuff like that, and it's taking me back to that. Like, it was all right when I was a kid reading it, but man, this is brutal. But I'm determined to finish it, so it could take a little while. But
one for you,
because I'm actually reading, because I don't have time to read too often. That's why I do Audible. Mm-hmm. To and from work. I can do other things and stuff like that. But no, I'm like, this is what I'm reading at lunch. And I'm like, oh, man, this is hard. But
make sure
anyway.
I go back.
They're getting more productivity out of me. Like, start reading it. I'm going to finish my lunch real quick. I got to get back to work. So.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Joseph, you reading anything else?
I'm almost done with the Inevitable Ruin. I have about 4 hours left or so. My normal reading schedule has been thrown off because a coworker is nice and I don't want to be an asshole, so that's the thing. But today, one of the senior partners at our firm came up to me and he's like, I need you to learn everything you possibly can about how AI is going to impact the future of our business. I don't care how you do it, just read everything you can about it. So that's my newest task. Outside of what we do for the book club, I'm just going to have to read all the AI stuff. I do market research for a living, Dennis. So we're trying to see how that's going to impact how we continue to do research.
If you're researching AI, I don't know if you know David Shapiro. He's a YouTuber, and he specializes in AI-related the whole AI-related subject. He's talked about what jobs will be impacted in the future and what businesses. And he actually produced a spreadsheet with the probability of any particular job title being replaced by AI, and it's a huge list.
Do you like the spreadsheet?
Yeah, we're in good company. Well, that is our show for the month, ladies and gentlemen. If you were watching us on YouTube, please give us a thumbs up, like, subscribe, do all that stuff. If you listen to us, give us a 5-star review on iTunes, wherever it is you listen to the show. You can find us at epicallygeeky.com, where you can find the other shows we do, including the Epically Geeky Show, the Creatively Geek Show, and Sustainably Geeky Show. We're going to start with Dennis. Dennis, where would you like to direct people to find out what you're working on?
I should say my blog, my webpage, Dennis E. Taylor, author.org. But
it's author.org. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, or is it DennisETaylor.org? Sorry.
I want to say it's Dennis E. Taylor. I thought I checked it. Now you got me worried.
Sorry. But I have to admit, I don't update that thing as often as I should, so it's not a great source of information. Probably the easiest thing is to follow me on Threads or Blue Sky or something like that, and if you get curious, just ask.
That's what we do.
All right. I guess we're going to move on to everyone else. Ray, I usually start with Ray. Ray, where do you find you online?
You can find me at the Reluctant Yeti on Instagram and on Blue Sky. So,
Chris?
Just on Instagram at Moody Midlife. What is Blue Sky?
It's a version of Twitter.
It's what everyone who got mad at Twitter is moving to, essentially.
Yeah.
So, Sean, where can we find you online?
Your favorite broken toy spelled the Canadian way on Instagram and TikTok. That's been fun. And yeah, screwing with Wikipedia. Oh yeah, Dennis, don't use Wikipedia for research. I go on there and screw with those things a lot. So yeah, just heads up.
I'm not apologizing for him. Sean, Joseph, where can we find you online?
Morjo7 on Blue Sky. Dennis, I just sent you just did a follow. So.
And as always, you can follow my individual wacky adventure online on Facebook and Instagram at Optimus Jane. For everyone on the site, have a good night.